There goes a fly ball towards left field. Going back fast is Kennedy. Kennedy gets there, and he takes it. And the Cleveland Indians are the world champions of 1948. And
this is Cleveland's Team, a baseball history podcast. A regular look back at professional baseball in Cleveland from 1901 and beyond. Now, here's your host, Guardians team historian, Jeremy Fedor.
What I remember most about playing baseball at an early age is my first team ever was the Expos, and played on T-ball on a T-ball team called the Expos. And I remember being really confused about where I was hitting in the order. I was hitting like ninth in the order, and I thought I was better than that at that point. So I was asking the coach, like, why am I hitting ninth? And he kept on saying it doesn't matter where you hit because everybody hits every inning. And I'm like, it still didn't compute for me. I guess I was competitive at an early age. But yeah, I've played baseball since I was 5 years old, I'd say. Yeah, and then went up the normal track, little league, no big travel teams. Didn't play travel baseball until I was 13. And probably the fondest memory of, pre-high school baseball was winning a gold medal in Fenway Park for part of Team USA. That was a really, really special event, really special experience.
Is that when baseball became more of a viable career option for you? Is when you started getting selected for like a Team USA, or when did you start to realize that baseball was your trajectory?
Probably around sophomore year in high school, started dropping the other sports. I was a multi-sport athlete, played soccer, played basketball, and dropped the other two sports sophomore, junior year. And, these days that doesn't happen that late. Usually it happens a little bit earlier. I'd encourage everybody to continue to play multi-sports. It's always a good thing, and actually something that college coaches will look for in their athletes coming in, baseball coaches.
And were you being recruited out of high school in terms of draft, like scouts looking at you for major league draft, or more focused on going to college?
So I had a lot of early interest on the pro side, but it wasn't for, I think, primarily for high school, like for the high school draft. So I had a lot of interest in college after the showcase that I went to. There was only two back in the early 90s. So it was the area code games out in Long Beach, which I think they still do, but I didn't get invited to. And then there was a new one called Team One National Showcase, which I think morphed into something else. And I went to that, and I remember that real plain as day. It was at Old Crosley Field in Cincinnati, and it rained that weekend. But we got a little outfield in, a little infield, and I ran the 60, ran pretty well. And I remember the first pitcher warming up that day for the games was Roy Halladay. And Roy Halladay was like maybe 50th or 60th on the top 100 high school players that year. It's crazy to look back at that list and see where people were. First on the list was Chad Hutchinson. Like third on the list, Josh Holliday, Matt's older brother. And they've since joined up at Oklahoma State on the coaching side. So really cool to think back on those days. But after that was when the colleges really, really started to pour in.
And 98 rolls around, and the draft comes, and obviously we just got over our draft with that first overall pick. So for you, 98, was the draft, I don't even know, was it televised then? Would they have shown the second round, or was it just for you sitting around the phone? And do you have any idea the Rockies were looking at you and that early in the draft?
Draft day was really, really crazy because there was no TV, there was no radio, there was no anything. So that year, I went to Stanford University in California. Our team was a stacked team, especially for the draft. And so the fourth overall pick that year was a guy named Jeff Austin, and he got picked fourth. And all we were doing was communicating through phones. So you'd get contacted by the phones in your dorm room. There was no cell phones. You get contacted by your scout in, for whoever picked you, whatever team. And that's how you found out. So Jeff lived across the hall from me. So we knew right away when the draft started. We didn't even know when the draft started. Like we found out that the draft started because Jeff got picked. And then Chad Hutchinson got picked in the second round, and he had signability question marks around him, so he didn't get picked in the first round. Got picked in the second round and got, a second first round type of bonus at the time. And so I was supposed to go in the first 2 or 3 rounds, and I was kind of hanging out thinking that okay, Chad got picked in the second round, like, any minute now. And then Brent Horde, left-handed pitcher, gets picked in the third round by the Twins across campus. And now I'm starting to worry because I haven't been contacted at all by anyone. And then another one of the guys got picked like in the 7th round. Tony Schrager got picked by the Cubs in the 7th round. And now I'm panicking. Like, I don't know what's going on, And then, so I'm thinking in my head, gosh, I'm coming back to school, senior year. Okay, I can just, let's make peace with it. And then a guy named Tom Wheeler from the Rockies called and said, "Hey, Jody, Tom Wheeler of the Rockies. Sorry I couldn't get back to you sooner, but we got you at the end of the second round." And I want to like reach through the phone and be like, "Man, you gave me what I think is supposed to be a heart attack at the time." So anyway, that was the draft story. I found out through the phone, but it was late, so I was panicking a little bit.
Did you know the Rockies were looking at you, or just,
No, I didn't, I think all the teams asked their questions about signability. Do you want to play now? Do you want to start your career now? Do you want to go back? And you never really know. I was benefited by the fact that our team for that year and next year was just completely loaded with draft prospects at the top end. So I had a lot of people that were out to see other players like Jeff, and they would see me because they were there anyway to see like Jeff and Chad. And so I got benefited, I think, by where I went to school. And, the fact that my best year was my junior year really helped too.
So then flash forward a couple of years, you spent some time in the minors, and then June 2nd, 2001, you get traded to Cleveland. And for you, again, what's that like to get traded as a minor league guy, and how did you remember getting that news?
Well, I remember at the time because I was hurt, so I was I was something of a throw-in. Me and a friend of mine to this day, Josh Bard, who's a coach still, were traded in the same trade for Jacob Cruz. And you never think you're going to get traded. That first time you get traded, you never, it feels like somebody abandoned you, and you feel like, the world's ending because, you're growing into your fabric into this team and into Denver and into the community. And the clubs all do a good job of making you feel at home that way. They bring you into Denver right away, get a lay of the land. And so I was hurt at the time, and I had come off a good, not great year. And so it was something of a, sort of an undercover extra throw-in that I kind of figured I was. And thankfully the good folks here on the medical side, Lonnie wasn't here yet, but I feel like it was Jim Mahalik that was doing the majority of my rehab. And that was a real, he breathed life back into us and everybody else. I was also here that September for 9/11. I was here in the morning when it happened, watching the TV in the training room.
And when you came to Cleveland, anyone particularly, did you know anyone in the minors? Did you know anyone that from your days of playing with the Rockies organization, or did you just kind of fall in and find some dudes to hang out with? Or
yeah, so I was traded as a AA player, and so I went to Akron right away, but I wasn't ready to play. And I think there was a conversation about whether or not I was ready to play. And I ended up having a surgery right after that, like that piggybacked the first surgery I had in 2000. And I really didn't know a ton of guys. I'd played against some of those guys the year before in Kinston. So guys like Matt White, little lefty pitcher, Matt White, Tim Drew, I think was a name that was a pitcher. JD Drew's younger brother was on the team at the time. Billy Munoz, Jason Fitzgerald, guys that some guys may have echo memories of those players back in the day, but for the most part, it was just sort of me and Josh.
And yeah, I guess you probably would have been aware of, those Cleveland teams in the 90s. That was a boom in Cleveland, and they were kind of coming off that high, after 2000, 2001. We still won the Central, but was that something that, was there an excitement to come to Cleveland, or was it, it's this weird era of our time, because, again, that's the 2000 years. You come off 455 consecutive sellouts to this new era. Was that something that you noticed as a player or anything of that nature?
Sure, because when you come to a new team, you're thinking about how are you going to fit into the team that is on the big league field right now, and selfishly, whose place would you take, right? That's what you're kind of thinking about. And the teams in the mid 90s were stacked. They were amazing. They were amazing teams with amazing players, especially in the outfield. I mean, the outfield was a model for what you'd want as a big league team. So, but everybody was really welcoming. I remember Charlie Manuel being really welcoming, always wanted to talk hitting. I remember Jim Tomei, who I know today, he lives in Chicago, down the street from us, being really welcoming and just encouraging, because I was doing rehab, and I really enjoyed that time. I mean, I don't know if you can enjoy rehab so much, but I mean, I did a couple rehabs with a couple different teams. This one was really, really probably the most that felt like family.
So you get your call up, April 26th, 2003, which doesn't seem like that long ago, but it's creeping up. And do you remember, again, getting that news? What was that like? Just kind of a manager calling his office and tell you you're going up, or?
Yeah, we were in Pawtucket, Rhode Island, and Brad Comments was the head coach, was the manager, and it was maybe 3:30 in the afternoon, 3:30 or so, 4:30. We were getting ready to be on the field to warm up, and he called me in and said, "You're big league bound. They're in Oakland. They have a day game tomorrow. Your flight leaves in 2.5 hours. Say goodbye, pack up with what you got." We were on the road, so all my stuff's at home, and you got to get to Boston Logan in an hour and a half. I was like, okay, let's do it. And so I did that, and didn't have a single thing to read. I stared at the chair right in front of me for 6 hours, and just happy as a lark.
Is that difficult then to wrap your head around? I mean, you have a 6-hour flight to think about, getting to the bigs, and then make your debut in Oakland too. I mean, that's a cavernous ballpark. Was your family able to get out there, or?
No, my family didn't go out, but the Bay Area is something of home to me. So I went to school down the road and had been to Oakland plenty of times. Rode the train plenty of times. So that morning, got up, took the BART to Oakland, just took the train, and went in, and gosh, I had like a 10 or 11 or 12 pitch at bat against John Halama, this sort of kind of crafty lefty, the guys that as a left-handed hitter you just hate. And I went 0 for 4 that first day, but felt good about how I played. And the next day faced Tim Hudson, who, turned out over the years to be just one of those guys where we had a lot of battles against one another. And it wasn't the first time we had faced each other. We'd gotten a chance to go head to head in the World Series in 1997 when he was at Auburn. And I got my first hit that next day, and thankfully another couple of hits to give yourself a little bit of breathing room. It's never good to start in the hole. But what a great experience. I mean, it was amazing. I do have the ball, and Bart Swain had a guy who dressed it up really, really nicely. Yeah, it was a hand sort of illustrated thing, and I still have it. It's on a mantle in our house, and yeah, I still have that one, and I still have I believe I still have the home run ball too, dressed up in the same way.
Bart's a really good guy. Helps guys out a lot, and just a pleasure to work with too. And Do you have a lot of mementos from your playing day? I mean, is that, something you have a wall at home with your first jersey or any of that stuff, or is the ball just the first two balls?
Yeah, I don't have a whole lot of stuff that was left over. I have a lot of the equipment. I have some of the I was never a keepsake guy, and I was never one to send stuff over to the other side to get signed. There was something about sending stuff over to get someone to sign and then going to battle against them, an hour and a half later in the game. In retrospect, I think that was something that I probably should have done. I mean, I think I regret, having to face Roger Clemens splitter, but not getting an autograph or a signed jersey from him.
It's not like, again, people that listen to this will never have a chance to, face guys that you grew up watching. I mean, you get in the batter's box and there's Roger Clemens, like Randy Johnson, or guys like that. I mean, do you have those moments of surrealness? You're like, all right, you're just like me. I got to get in there. I got to play. I mean, those are Hall of Fame guys. And, when you're in the middle of it, maybe it's not a big deal. But, as anyone who loves the history of the game, I mean, those are some names that, are etched in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah, I think early on in spring training, you kind of get that out of the way. So when you're in the minor leagues, you get those kind of one days where you get called up. Maybe you're in Florida, you're going to some team on the other side of the state where it's an hour and a half or 2 hours one way. Most guys aren't going to want to take that trip if you're in the big leagues, so they call up minor league guys to fill in, right? And so that was I think a lot of that sort of awe got out of the way when we were in the minor leagues. At the time, we were in Tucson, so we were driving up from Tucson to Phoenix to play, and then the only other team in Tucson, I think, was the Diamondbacks. I think it was just us and the Diamondbacks. I don't think there was another team down there. But yeah, when you get to the big leagues and you're facing guys that you remember watching on the TV when you were younger, it is sort of an out of body experience for a little bit. But then you snap back and you realize that the ball's traveling just in the same way as if it was somebody else throwing. Just because the guy's last name is Johnson or Clemens doesn't mean that 95's different than their 95. It's you get back and get focused a lot more quickly than you might expect.
And what was it like playing in Cleveland in those early 2000s? I mean, what guys do you remember teammate wise that you maybe still keep in contact with, or again, you're coming off that post 90s vibe. Was, I mean, still a great place to play? I mean, in those years for you, what was again the vibes and just your overall experience?
Well, it was playing in Cleveland, in the city of Cleveland, was just a really honorable experience. I mean, the city itself, you could tell, was just a really awesome sports town. Some of the parts of the city at the time that weren't as developed, you could feel them kind of coming on, like the Tremont district, that Tremont neighborhood. You could tell in the early 2000s that was coming. That was going to be a thing. That was going to be a place where someone was going to have some gnarly, awesome idea because it was so artistic and so creative, like that energy. And but it's a simple town. I mean, at the time, it was a simple town. It looks like it's grown up quite a bit since then, but it's been it was great. It was great to play in Cleveland at the time, and it was something of a different. It was probably something of a different experience because of all of those guys leaving at the same time too. I mean, the team got gutted. Bartolo Colon gone, Robbie Alomar gone. I mean, those were big trades of big names, iconic Cleveland names that did a lot of stuff for the city and for the team. And the remnants of it was Omar Vizquel, right, and a handful of other guys. Ellis Burks was brought in and to be the wise veteran player, and I remember Ellis Burks being like a surrogate dad almost to you when he came in. He bought me my first big league suits. It was a gift from him. He bought me 6 suits. I mean, who does that? It was incredible. It was an incredible experience. And then you learned at the time you had the veteran players were a lot more vocal. So for example, I remember walking into the clubhouse and Bob Wickman being in there getting treatment on his arm from Jim Mahalik. And I walked in and I didn't say anything. And he calls me back and he's like, "Hey, You say hello every single time, every single day. That's what you do here. And I'm like, I'm sorry, Bob. Good morning. He's like, good morning, like that. And to this day, when I walk into a room, like where I work now, wherever I go, if it's an everyday kind of thing, I walk in and I say good morning to everybody, because the days will start to string together. That was his point. And I took that away. I was not insulted at all. I took that away as like my life lesson. He was trying to help me.
And what was it like to watch guys like CC and Victor, and again, there's some pretty big names that kind of came through during your time here, and we're honoring CC in our Hall of Fame in a week or 2 weeks, week and a half, something like that. I mean, it must have been pretty fun to watch him on the mound.
CC was as amazing a presence in the clubhouse as he was on the field. He deserves every single award and honor that he receives. And being on that team with him and other guys who were still getting their footing, like Victor Martinez, Travis Hafner, Johnny Peralta, and some other guys too. Just you look back and you see the guys that they became, the players that they became, the men that they became, and it was just a real honor to say that I shared the field with him.
And you had some pretty memorable games on August 20th, and I sent you some of these videos hoping to jog your memory. But August 28th, 2003, you had that 2 home run game. What are those games like for a batter? I mean, does the ball look like a beach ball? I mean, or is it just one of those things that, I mean, how many guys? I mean, I don't know how many guys hit 2 home runs in a game, let alone 3. But it's still pretty special to be able to do that.
Yeah, I don't know how many other times I did that ever. I think I maybe did it once in college, but I think one of the guys that helped me probably more than anybody else, a guy that I would say made me become a big league hitter, gave me that final sort of push, was Eddie Murray, because Eddie Murray was the hitting coach here. Eddie Murray taught me about approach. He taught me that you're not supposed to cover the whole plate at any given time. You're supposed to, have an idea, have a plan. And that year and that day in particular was one where the plan just came together every single time. I'd have a plan before the pitch was thrown. The pitch was thrown. It was there, and put a good swing on it, and the ball did what it was supposed to do. And between Eddie Murray and Eric Wedge, just allowing me to give myself permission to be great that year, and even the year before, going into that season, because I didn't start the 2003 season in the big leagues. I started it with a month in the minor leagues, and I had an epiphany. I mean, I hit 10 home runs the year before, and I hit 27 the year after. I mean, I did some different training things, but it was a total mindset change, and not something I could have done on my own.
Is it easier to listen to a guy like Eddie because of the credentials and the background he had, or just, I mean, it's got to help a lot to listen to a future Hall of Famer. Granted, I'm sure you would have listened to anyone that was helping you coach, but to have someone like Eddie on your side must have been pretty nice.
It was great, because he was bold in what he had to say. Obviously, he respected his opinion about how to hit a baseball, and especially on the mental side. Eddie was a guy who learned how to switch hit when he was 20, so he wasn't necessarily the mechanical genius. He was an approach genius. He allowed me to look at things in a very, very different way. And, when you're facing really, really good pitchers, there's a risk that you look at things like everything is flat, and you've got to be able to handle every single thing in any given count. And the reality of the situation was, and I wouldn't have gotten there without him on this, is you don't do that. You pick your spots, you do your homework, you watch video, you make a plan, and you try to execute that plan in the game. And if it doesn't work, it doesn't work, and you go on to the next day. When you hear that some of the best hitters in the game have plans beforehand, that really, really opens you up to be able to go in with some confidence to say, I'm gonna look for a fastball here, or I'm gonna look for a breaking ball here. Because when you hear somebody else do it, that did it for so long, so successfully, you can say to yourself, well, that's okay. I can do that too. And if it works, you're like, wow, I'll do that again, and I'll do it again, and I'll do it again. So Eddie Murray was a real crucial part of especially in the early part of my career.
And, from one Hall of Famer to another, Feller was around a lot. Do you have any good Bob Feller stories, or what was it like to be around a guy like Bob Feller?
Bob was the consummate wise old Cleveland Indian at the time, and he was always a joy to have around, especially in spring training, because he was there early, and he established this continuity within the franchise for us players, whether we knew it or not at the time. The fact that he was present in the clubhouse meant a whole lot to us. I mean, you look at some of my, look at my beloved Chicago White Sox right now. There's no direction. There's no seniority there. If they knew what was good for him, they'd probably sign Jose Abreu just to come and sit in the clubhouse, because there was no direction. And having Bob, especially in spring training, made things really loose. And he would always speak openly and riv us and encourage us and challenge us to be better players and better men.
He never pitched to you or anything, did he? I know he liked to pitch up until the end. He was pitching.
He never pitched to us. Never asked. I was thankful that he didn't. But he was always really active. I mean, I was thinking that I wanted to be that active when I was as aged as he was.
Now, you were part of, I think it's been 3 or 4 times in franchise history, you've hit 4 home runs in the same inning. Do you remember that game at all? Against Seattle?
Against Seattle, yeah. I had my wife's family's from Seattle, so I had some family there from her side, and there's no conspiracy there. I mean, we just went up and just hit, right? So it was kind of cool when you sort of feel it coming on, kind of like when you feel a good game coming on. Like when I hit for the cycle years later, it just sort of happens where it's like all of a sudden you're within reach. So home run number 1, okay. Home run number 2, okay, cool. Home run number 3, and you're like, whoa, that's different. And then home run number 4, you're like, wow, that's great. Team height, right? Like there's got to be some history there. But that was a great experience.
Victor had 3 that game too, which is amazing, and I think that was all in the 9th inning, which is it's pretty wild. So you mentioned actually, your rookie year, and you finished 4th in Rookie of the Year voting. I mean, that's got to be again one of those moments too that you cherish. And was it tough after that? I mean, do you feel a lot of pressure after you finish that high and something like that for the next few seasons? Is that something that you thought about a lot? Like, well, now I have this to, on my back, or is it just kind of one of those things that baseball is kind of a sport that can kind of take you in wild ways?
Yeah, I mean, the career trajectory that I had wasn't one I'm happy for every year that I played, for every at bat that I had. And I think that second year was challenging for me because I feel like I probably put more weight on my shoulders than was even there. I thought it was, looking back, I think it was probably more of a mental construct than anything else. We had a really good team, and I think that maybe the attention got the better of me because I think I made adjustments that I didn't really, think was going to be necessary. But at the time I thought it was. So, but it ended up taking steps back. It's something that I remember as a hitting coach now. People want to get there. I train some really, really good high school players now, and they want to get there. They want to be a big league all-star right now at 15 and 16. It's like, look, a chicken takes an hour in the oven. You can't turn it on to 600 degrees and expect the same result in 20 minutes as you do in an hour. It just does not work that way. Because everybody's path winds a little bit, and your body changes and your mind changes, your approach changes. And, I think at the time I was just trying to carry too much weight, which was unfortunate for the team, because I feel like that could have been, a team I was going to be a part of for a really long time.
Then 2005 rolls around, and getting towards the trade deadline, and I was reading online you were actually traded before the game. Now, were you aware of that, and then the wedge still put you in the lineup, or it was talks that it was going to happen and maybe it hadn't been signed or anything but that? But did you know you were possibly going to be traded and any of that?
I didn't really have a firm awareness of that even being a possibility. I was pretty good about not reading media. So that was a directive, strong suggestion from Eric Wedge at the time, because no good comes out of it. I mean, just like anything else, it's like, what are you going to do with the information? You're going to somehow channel it into the game? Probably not. And if you do, it's probably not going to turn out well. So why do it? Answer the questions that get asked, be professional and move on. But the first trade was to the Cubs. It was for Jason Dubois, I think. And there was a really short-lived time with the Cubs because, Swing wasn't feeling so great and they needed somebody to step in at the time immediately because Todd Hollinsworth wasn't doing so great in left field. It was the first time he playing left field pretty consistently too. That wasn't all great. So I ended up getting traded to Pittsburgh and having another surgery. Like I said, the trajectory of your career, Mark Shapiro said it pretty well, which is like not everybody's career path is linear. He said that at the time that the trade happened. Totally wise statement. I mean, nothing could have been more accurate than that to say.
And yeah, I mean, like you said, you got to the show though. You got some good years. What do you take away? When fans think of your career and who you were as a player, what do you want them to think about the most?
I'm still really thankful for the time that I had here, and even now when I'm walking into the stadium, people were stopping me for autographs. I mean, I have no idea how they knew that I was going to be here, but I mean, I got stopped twice on the way over from the hotel. I will say that, one of the things how it happened, sort of taking that quantum leap, that was an interesting chain of events. So we had these end of the year meetings, and so it was with Mark Shapiro and it was with, I believe, Chris Antonetti. Neil Huntington could have been there too, or it was Neil, not Chris. Definitely Mark. And so I'd had the season where it was 300, 10 home runs, 50 RBIs, maybe 10 or 15 stolen bases. Like a really good year split between AA, AAA. Started in AA, got called up halfway through the year, ended in AAA, did well. It was my first year back full from being hurt. And so, they said, great season, keep doing what you're doing and you'll get there soon. Well, that same year, Coco Crisp got called up from AA over me to the big leagues. Now, I'm not the same player as Coco Crisp. We serve different purposes, but still, it was one of those things where, I needed to take note. So I got up and I started to leave, and I stopped and I came back and I said, what do I really need to do to get to the big leagues? And they said, Mark and Chris just said, seriously, just keep working hard. You're doing everything right. Just keep on developing. You'll get there. Probably something that I would say to a kid now, right? So the right things to say. And I asked again, and they gave me the same reply. And so this is what I said. I said, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to say what I think you want to say. And if it is actually what you want to say, but can't actually say, don't say anything. And then I'm going to walk out. So I'm going to go home and I'm going to train and I'm going to get stronger. And I'm going to come back and I'm going to hit more home runs. I'm going to drive in more guys. I'm going to score runs too. I'll probably strike out more, but I'll also walk more and I'll play the same great defense. And if that's really what you want to say, don't say anything. And Mark and Chris kind of like looked at each other. They were sitting next to each other. They looked back at me and they didn't say anything. And I walked right out. And that was how the season ended. That was the postseason ending meeting. And then 2003 was, 27 home runs and 95 RBIs from 10 home runs and 50 RBIs. I mean, it was a total. The training had a lot to do with it. I did some really, really strong training, committed myself there. But but the mindset the mindset shift was a huge factor. And the video guys here, Frank and can't remember the other guy's name, really helped me out. Spliced a bunch of left-handed hitting videos right in a row, and I studied and I asked questions and did everything I needed to do to feel like I was getting myself in a good position.
You've been listening to Cleveland's Team, a baseball history podcast with Guardians team historian Jeremy Fedor.